right, guys, welcome back to this week's episode of the Amazon Wholesale Podcast. So we have a unique episode in store for you guys this week, trying something we haven't tried before because I've got the team over at the Wholesale Network on the call with me today. And guys, we're going to go over a state of the union when it comes to the wholesale business model on Amazon. So we're going to be talking about our thoughts about the business model, where is it heading, what is working for sellers in 2024 who are doing wholesale, as well as talking about some of the group buy opportunities we have on the table within the Wholesale Network and some other fun stuff just like that. So guys, before we get into this week's episode, a quick word from our sponsor, and our sponsor is Smart Scout. So guys, Smart Scout is the best tool on the market by far for finding those qualified brand direct leads. I just spent 2.5 hours earlier this week teaching a masterclass on finding suppliers, and every single method I used involves Smart Scout. So guys, people don't realize that Smart Scout has a sellers feature that you can plug in a competing seller's storefront and find their most profitable products and use that information to find their exact suppliers. So guys, Smart Scout puts your sourcing on steroids. Head over to smartscout.com and use the code wholesale25 to get 25% off your first 3 months of Smart Scout. And guys, again, that code is wholesale25. So with that, we're going to introduce the team behind the Wholesale Network. With me today, I've got Kate Humphreys, who's our community manager. I've got Cajua Robinson, who's one of our coaches. I've got Joe Seville, who's in charge of coordinating the group buys within the mastermind community. And we're just missing Jonah Hodges, who's one of our other coaches as well. So guys, let's start by each of us giving just a 30 to 60 second high level overview of where we feel the wholesale business model is going, like at the time of today's conversation, which is end of July 2024, right? So I'll start us out. And in general, and I think we could probably all agree on this, especially because Amazon is cracking down more heavily on supply chain and proving that your products are authentic. Guys, I feel like that wholesale is going more towards the brand direct route, right? The sellers that are buying directly from brands, or that are at least buying from distributors who are buying directly from brands, are going to be the ones who are in the best position long term to have a lot of, basically have a long-term business model here with Amazon, with wholesale. So next, let's go over to Kaj. And Kaj, let's get your thoughts on kind of where wholesale's headed.
Yo, what's going on, people? Yep, I'm in the same boat there. Definitely think brand direct is the future, and I think the future is now. The days of buying from liquidators or any wholesaler who has, stuff on closeout that's really good pricing. Sure, the product's legit, but now it's too much of a risk with all the Section 3s that have been happening, Amazon asking to verify supply chain. It's something where now it's not enough to just have product that isn't fake. You also need to be able to prove the legitimacy of your supply chain. And so for our business, that's what we've been doing. We've been focusing on brand direct outreach, building relationships directly with brands or with distributors that we know are buying directly from brands and can prove that if they need to.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, we're doing the exact same thing on our end. So Kate, do you want to share your thoughts as well?
For sure. So one of the things that I looked into was Amazon's annual report. So I read through part of their 2023 annual report, and you can see in there that they actually highlight the brands that they're bringing on and they're partnering with, and they want to kind of legitimize these brands on their platform. So they're looking for people who are doing large volume, like wholesale, and partnering with those brands to really get them all aligned with Amazon's kind of mission to sell and have those brands represented the way that they want to be. And that part of that is moving away from kind of third party, more random sellers. So I definitely think wholesale is the direction that Amazon is looking for their third party sellers to go in.
Yeah, and it makes a ton of sense, right? Because at the end of the day, Amazon is going to make a disproportionately large amount of money from their third party sellers, but from their large sellers, right? It seems to me, and this is kind of what I've heard from a lot of other people, that Amazon is squeezing out the more casual, kind of unsophisticated sellers, and they really are catering their services and catering their platform towards the sellers who are going to be more serious, who are, working directly with brands and who are building a long-term business as opposed to just like a casual side hustle, right? So I would second what both of you guys said. We lost Joe for a second, but he'll be coming back shortly to share his thoughts. But guys, with that said, right, so we've got an idea from each of us on where we feel like the wholesale business model is headed in 2024. Let's now talk about what is working for sellers in 2024, right? Because obviously, guys, as being the team behind the wholesale network, we're talking to sellers every single day, sellers who are in the trenches building their wholesale businesses. And I think we have, last I checked, about 73 folks within the coaching tier of the wholesale network community. So guys, we're talking to them all day, every day. So Kaj, I'll start with you, man, because you run a lot of the weekly coaching calls. What are you hearing from sellers as being something that's definitely working in today's wholesale environment?
Well, the funny thing is, even though the platform is changing and what Amazon wants from sellers is changing, what's working to be successful is pretty much exactly the same.
I love that you said that. I was hoping you were going to say that. That's exactly what you said.
Which is doing research, finding brands, finding distributors that meet a certain criteria, and then calling them, following up, providing value, and eventually getting that first purchase order in. And if you're able to do those things, you will have success in the long term.
Completely agreed, right? Because guys, at the end of the day, the fundamentals and the basics always work. Like these things work regardless of how Amazon's changing, regardless of what's happening with the platform itself. The simple premise of finding good quality brands and buying directly from those brands or buying from one of those authorized distributors, those principles never change, right? The only thing that's really changing is how Amazon is enforcing certain policies, the way Amazon is treating certain sellers. But in general, if you're operating your business the way that Kaj and I just described, you're going to have very little to worry about, right? And Kate, what are you hearing as well? Because you're talking to sellers every single day as well. What are you seeing is working for them really well in 2024?
For sure. So I think part of what we're seeing in terms of success with our community members, it's a lot of a numbers game. So it's kind of putting yourself out there and making those calls, like doing the emails, doing the cold calls, following up, like Kaj had mentioned. One of the pieces we do in our community is our kind of CRM, our customer relationship manager, but we enter in the distributors and the brands that each person is contacting. So they have their own CRM that they build out. And then we've got that feature we just opened with opening up some distributors and some resources for our members once they hit that, I think it's 100 distributors or brands contacted. So I think people are seeing success in that. Like if you make enough calls, you're going to see the deals on the table for sure.
100%. And I actually want to highlight that. So for those of you guys listening, if you're wholesale network members, you know exactly what we're talking about. If you're not wholesale network members, just to give you guys kind of a rundown on what we're referring to. So as part of the membership, right, we're going to give you what's called a quick start guide. So as part of that quick start guide, we give you a custom CRM template within Google Sheets to then go out and you find those first 100 qualified brands. And when you contact those first 100 qualified brands, we are actually going to give you access to a supplier directory that we put together. So essentially, it's our way of kind of dangling that carrot in front of you guys to say, hey, if you reach out to 100 brands, you unlock access to this supplier database, because we know that the sellers that actually go out and contact 100 brands aren't actually going to need that supplier database, right? It's more of just icing on the cake, because when you contact 100 brands, you're going to land 2 to 3 to 5 that end up being profitable. So it's almost our way of like forcing people to do the work, right? And so you're basically saying, Kate, that like, hey, the people that actually contact 100 brands see results. Like, shocker, right? Like who would have thought that actually works?
Right.
Right. Joe, what are you seeing on your end, right? Because you're mainly dealing with folks inside the mastermind community, which for the listeners is our community of sellers who are doing at least 7 figures in revenue or more. And Joe's coordinating a lot of the group buys for the folks within that group. So Joe, what are you seeing that's working really well inside the mastermind when it comes to just like leveling up in wholesale in 2024?
Yeah, and sorry about the disconnect there. You know, going back, you mentioned the brand direct, and so brand direct's awesome, right? And that is definitely a great way to go. But what we're seeing, I don't know what the right term is yet, but where we're making brand relationships, but through the distributor, right? So we're actually still dealing with the brand, and some of these brands, they don't want to have 300 different people to deal with, right? They still want to deal with their one distributor, but they're willing to partner with with sellers through that distributor. So where we've seen some success and some challenges still as we're kind of figuring, getting through it, is where we've made an agreement to take over like one SKU with that brand. So we're in essence brand direct, right, on that SKU, and to show our power. So it's like a brand relationship, I would guess what we'd call it. And not really, we're still going through the distributor. But overall, we're seeing, the success, I think, with what we're doing with the group buys or the group organization format as, first of all, we're able to bring together a bunch of different levels of knowledge and viewpoints. So I think that's one of the big strengths. Obviously, we're bringing together money too. So we're bringing together a larger pile of money. And I think a lot of people within our group could make very, very large purchases on their own just because of their current business. But what's nice about this is instead of saying 480,000 in one SKU, which they might be able to do, but now they can go 150,000 on that SKU and buy 3 other SKUs for that. And so we're still diversifying, as a lot of us did, maybe a year, 4 years ago when you were leveling up. So it's nice, you're still diversifying just at a larger level. Totally. And we're getting those letters of authorization where the distributor has years of experience or relationship with the brand, so they're able to negotiate on our behalf pricing and letters of authorization.
And that is such a key point too, right? Talking about those letters of authorization, because guys, we've heard the horror stories recently where it's not happening often, but it is happening, where Amazon is shutting down some sellers and requiring them to submit an LOA or letter of authorization for certain brands that they're selling. And if the seller cannot produce that document, Amazon is keeping them suspended, right? Now, I don't say this to alarm anybody or to scare anybody, because these are very rare instances, but it is happening. And what Joe is saying is that one of the distributors, right, we're not buying directly from the brand in this instance, we are buying through a distributor, but that distributor sells strictly into our community, right? And the distributor is buying directly from the brand, and the distributor is communicating with the brand on our behalf. So this way, again, even though we're buying through the distributor, the brand knows exactly who we are. They know we're selling it on Amazon, and they're willing to provide each seller in the deal an LOA, right? Or that letter of authorization that they're going to need to beat any sort of issues they would run into when it comes to Amazon. So again, this is just one of the many benefits of being a part of a very high level community of 7- and 8-figure wholesale sellers who are, I mean, quite frankly, spending a shit ton of money every single week and every single month with some of these suppliers. And I mean, another example of that would be the group buy that we put together this past week, right? Joe, you and I had an initial conversation with this distributor. He told us that his MOQ, his minimum order quantity, was 125K. So we pulled together money from 3 sellers within the mastermind, and we actually spent 180K on a single product. And this particular product is ranked top 10 in a main category, right? And this guy, the distributor that we're buying it from, is buying it directly from the brand. So lots of really good opportunities in the pipeline for the mastermind in particular. Joe, are there any other, what other opportunities do we have kind of on the near horizon when it comes to group buys specifically within the
we got a bunch. I mean, we have a bunch of stuff out there today. Got some more stuff to add to the group, but recently one that just kind of, sometimes it's the smaller, quieter ones that come alive. So without getting into the name brand, but we just got hit up about an opportunity on I'll call it a sports bottle type stuff, like kind of what you're drinking out of right now as I look at the screen. So brand direct through our distributor hit us up and said, hey, are you interested in this? Went back and forth, and I said, hey, what are we going to do for pricing? Well, we don't know yet. This is a brand new brand. We got an opportunity to partner with them. So we kind of talked, said, what if we got a few people to go in at 1,000 units each? I threw it out to the group. The feedback has been just awesome. I think as of 2 days ago, I was at a 3,000 unit potential order, because we're going to wait back for final pricing, right? So we got to get, we know the price is going to be close. I think as of this morning, we're over 4,000 units that are being requested. We might get that to 5,000 by the end of the day, and we'll be narrowing down the prices. So that thing just kind of snuck up. This wasn't a big, we've done some appliances or kitchen equipment or household appliances that are, buy cost $400 to $500. This isn't. These are items in that $20, $30 range, retailing for $40 range. And so that's kind of new for the group buys. We've been, focused on a lot of higher ticket items, $500,000 purchases, 400,000. So this is fun. We've also branched off into some pet products like collars and stuff that have worked really well. And those things, when we can get our hand, that's been really great. So we've got some power tools coming into the mix here soon. Details coming out on that, which look good, and that'll be direct from the brand as well through a distributor. We met with a pretty decent sized food and wholesale restaurant supply distributor. Let's see, what's today? I'm losing track of my days. So I think that was on Friday of last week. And we're going to be starting to go through that catalog and looking at potential half truckload to full truckload opportunities with them. That, again, we'll share throughout the group. Hopefully have anywhere between 3 to 5, 6 sellers, depending on the velocity of the item. So we got some really good stuff coming. And every day I keep saying that, but we just keep getting more stuff. So it's awesome.
That's what I was about to say. I was like, I feel like, honestly, and like, again, not to just like kind of toot our own horn here, but at the end of the day, the issue for most of the folks inside the mastermind is just going to be getting enough capital to capitalize on these opportunities. Because, I mean, I can speak for myself personally. Like, I don't have nearly enough capital to buy everything that's coming into the group. So, like, Joe, you and I, we're not necessarily like cherry picking anything off the top at all.
No.
We're just forwarding this onto the group. And we're like, hey guys, like, whoever wants it, like, it's first come, first serve. And usually right away, because we've got good deals, right? They're scooped up pretty quickly.
Yeah, I typically keep myself. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say, what's the ballpark number on how much we've spent so far?
Joe, I was gonna ask you the exact same thing. That was actually gonna be one of my next questions. Is like, what is like the ballpark for a typical group by PO size? And I was kind of looking through some of the invoices today, and I mean, there are some that are maybe like 8 to 15K, but in general, they're ranging like anywhere from like 50K to $500,000, right?
Per buy. So what number would you like, per buyer or as a whole?
Honestly, as a whole, I mean, it's multi-millions in the last 2 months that we've spent.
So as a whole, with one distributor, we'll just use one for this because we're well over 1.1 million in the last. I'll be generous. I'll say 3 months because there was a tail end of a month and we're coming up on the end of this month. We've done well over one, and we might even be over 1.5 million on that. And some of the POs, 480,000. I don't think we've broken $500,000 on one single PO. We have, if you add the add-on. So like we've done let's say we did a PO for 480,000, and then a month later, we're going to replan some of those items, another 80 or 100,000, right? But yeah, for the individual buyers, we were having them anywhere from 20K to, I've seen guys drop it. We've been over 150, 200,000 individual purchases. And I also, we coordinate a lot of single buys through there too. So it's not all just group buys. Right. So a lot of time we'll get an opportunity and it might be like, hey, this is a great idea. It's only 2,000 units. Who wants them? And I help coordinate that with just one person. And those add up. Those little like 2,000 unit orders. They really add up. So it's really around.
When you think about it from an ROI perspective, so for those of you listening, right, and maybe you're on the fence about joining the wholesale network, again, average ROI is going to be about in the 25% range. So if our average member is spending, 100,000, 200,000 a year, and if they wanted to, it could be 7 figures in spend per year. That's paying for the price of admission there, probably within that first purchase order. So it's a very clear ROI in my mind.
And I think it throws it to put it out there is that even in this world, right, there's nothing's absolutely perfect or flawless. This does not also come with some challenges as well. The one thing that I will add is we've had people jump on listings. We run into it. It does happen, right? But what's really nice is that the bond and relationship or friendship we've built with some of these distributors, we can have very frank, upfront conversations like what the heck, man, or I'm trying to be polite here, but what the F, all right? And Kaj knows what I'm talking about. We've had this just recently, like, dude, I'm pissed, and we're going to get you on a call with everybody, and we got to figure out how to address this. So that does happen, because that's real life. This isn't, we're not being handed products and then it's just the, but we've got really good, and this is the way I kind of sum it up. We have excellent products, name brand, high end products. We have 100% backing and supply chain. And for an example on supply chain is we've had some buyers that have asked to have products shipped to them directly. So for most of these items, and I'm not going to say 100%, 90%, we will not ship them to a buyer personally. And it's for the buyer's protection. These items go right from the distributor where they are inspected and inventoried and serial numbered, and they go right to direct to Amazon. And that reduces our liability of supply chain issues, number one. It also prevents the potential of them being resold or shopped out to other, which we would hope nobody would do that, but it just helps secure that. That being said, we have such a good relationship with the distributors, from the managers to the owners, that we have problems, they're ready to jump on the phone with us and start addressing them. So even we get some stuff, it might take us another week or two to get it cleaned up, but the revenue still ends up being there at the end of the day. And that's awesome. I mean, it's almost unheard of, in a typical operation when you're running by yourself.
Right. And I'm glad you added that caveat too, right? Because we'd be lying if we said, oh, every deal goes 100% smoothly and everything's great. We run into challenges just like anybody else does. But I do think it's worth mentioning, Joe, like you said, everything that we're buying from these distributors, they are prepping and they are shipping straight to Amazon for us, right? And the reason that we don't want them to ship it to our facility is exactly like Joe said, because the supplier knows when they receive it from the brand and then they ship it straight to FBA, they know where it came from and they know where it's going, right? So they don't have to worry about some rogue seller, selling off their units to some other seller. And the next thing you know, the listing on Amazon's a shit show, right? So that's kind of the thought process there. And that's one of the many benefits of working closely with these suppliers is they're like, hey, we'll just ship it straight to FBA for you, right?
The one thing I'm going to add in, and I'll get off the podium here of the group buys, but one of the things I love the most is when we run a group buy or a group purchase or one of these conglomerates where we typically run a chat for everybody involved in that.
Right.
And the amount of, the banter's fun, but the amount of knowledge, right? Because Kate will look at something from a different point of view than Kaj does. Kaj looks at it differently than I do. And when you put us together and that realm of like, oh, wow, I didn't even think about it from that angle. Right. That makes perfect sense. And now we're making better decisions because sometimes I maybe get all fired up and I take it, I get butthurt over it because I'm an emotional type person. And then Kaj will kick back and goes like, yeah, let's wait a day because look what happened here. Right. And then you wait 48 hours and like, oh, wow. Okay. That evened out. And so that power of the minds that we have together is insane. It's insane.
Well, that's why it's
I'll chime in on that
right?
too,
because
Joe, because
we're combining a lot of smart people there.
Exactly. And in the one group chat for a buy, I'm spitballing off the top of my head, but there's probably combined 30 plus years of experience selling on Amazon. Yeah. So it's like,
and we're talking just Amazon.
Yeah.
Now throw in the Walmart guy, right? That's doing, or a girl that's doing more on Walmart. Or what I just learned a little bit more about recently is sending products foreign, not just opening your store, but actually shipping. Right? We have opportunity that, because someone found that niche in the world of sending it to Europe or whatever, right? That's just, it's insane. It's insane.
It's actually wild with the network and the number of people. So I am nowhere near being a 7-figure seller, but I'm kind of a fly on the wall with that group because I'm helping as a community manager. And to see these deals come through and to see the knowledge that everyone has, building that network and having that network, your decisions are exponentially faster, they're better, the opportunities are exponentially bigger and more in volume. It's wild to watch these group buys happen and the networking and the growth in the businesses. It's really cool.
And what else is fun stuff. What else is happening that we're not really all talking about too much is the spin-offs from within, the friendships that are made, and the side projects. I just had someone reach out to me, one of the brands we're working with, about partnering up and coming up with a plan to really aggressively attack a brand that I have a direct comms with and direct authorization and exclusivity. And, sorry. And, it's really exciting. Cause it's just two different ways, you get different minds involved in different ways of thinking. So really exciting.
It's very exciting stuff across the board. And so, For the listeners here, right, the group buy component that we've been mentioning for the last few minutes or so, so that is exclusive to our mastermind tier. And that is for sellers doing at least 7 figures per year in revenue with the wholesale model. And guys, Kate and Kaj are a little more active in our coaching group, right, which is for sellers that are trying to scale to that 7-figure mark. Mm-hmm. So our goal within the wholesale network is, guys, if you're in the scaling phase, you join the coaching group. You get the coaching, the content, and the community that is going to help get you to that 7-figure per year level. And then once you hit that 7 per year level, we elevate you into the mastermind group where you can participate in those group buys and be surrounded by these 7 and 8-figure wholesale sellers. So Kaj and Kate, I have a question for you guys because I know, again, you're a little more intertwined with the coaching group there. What seems to be the biggest bottleneck with sellers that are in that scaling phase, right? Because again, we spend a lot of time coaching them. We spend a lot of time helping them either they're in the group setting or one-on-one in the DMs or in the voice chat. How are we, helping them overcome some of these bottlenecks, and what are those bottlenecks that they're running into in general?
Yeah, it's going to depend. There's a few different kinds of people within the coaching tier. So one is going to be a person who's just starting wholesale from the ground up, doesn't have experience with Amazon. That person, I find, at least from within the questions channel, or if they're hitting me up on DMs, is it's just going to be learning how to read a keeper graph effectively.
Right.
That's normally going to be the bottleneck. And then you've also got people who maybe they scaled up OA or they did some RA. They're already used to Amazon. They're used to arbitrage, but now they're doing wholesale. And then the bottleneck there is going to be just continuing to get them on the phone and stop being a keyboard warrior. And also getting used to understanding like what is a legitimate supplier. Okay, you shouldn't buy from this person. You should buy from this person. And also lead times, because the lead time with wholesale is very different than a RA FBM product. So those are some of them that I'm seeing. Another one I think would just be just getting that initial PO placed, and sometimes being willing to take a little bit of a lower margin. Again, if you're transitioning from traditional arbitrage, retail, or online, where you're used to seeing maybe a 30%, 40% ROI, but with wholesale, it takes time to build a relationship to get to there. So those are some of the things off the top of my head that I think are challenging for people who are just starting wholesale or are transitioning from OA or RA.
That's so true. And I'll kind of add my 2 cents there as well, because in all the coaching that I'm doing there within the community, the biggest bottleneck I've noticed for sellers, and now I'll caveat this by saying this is mainly for sellers that are selling on Amazon, right? They're doing arbitrage or they're doing some other method of selling, and now they're transitioning to wholesale. And those sellers' biggest bottlenecks, in my experience, is, Kaj, kind of like what you mentioned, is just vetting the suppliers that they're reaching out to, right? I cannot tell you how many folks inside the wholesale network, they join and they start to do the research process, and then they DM me and they say, hey, Corey, can you take a look at this supplier? What do you think? And the supplier is like clearly not a fit, right?
Dude, no, don't do it.
I can't tell you. I've sent some voice messages to guys. I'm like, guys, do not reach out. Don't talk to that seller. Delete that lead from your CRM, right? So I really feel like that is half the battle, especially for the experienced sellers. Is just determining what a good wholesale supplier looks like, right? And now, luckily, inside the resources vault, which is a Airtable base that we have 63 pieces of content inside of that wholesale network members get access to. Inside that resources vault, we've got 2 very clear, very concise PDFs. One says distributor criteria, one says brand criteria, right? So we pretty much arm new sellers with, hey, here's these 2 documents, right? When you find a distributor, run them through this criteria every single time. If they meet these criteria, they're great. If they don't, they're not, right? Yep. And then same thing with the brand criteria. Here is a document that shows exactly what a good brand looks like. If a brand fits this criteria, great. You call them and you look for distributors. If they don't, you move on to the next one, right? So just kind of drilling that message into sellers' heads of this is what a good supplier looks like. This is what a bad supplier looks like. Once we can get somebody to grasp that concept, which is usually a day or less of just, getting coached by us in the group, then they're off to the races. And 2 days later, you're like, hey, I just placed my first PO. And you're like, great, right? Thank you. I'm glad you listened. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm seeing on my end. Kate, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I would say the same thing. So all of the tools and all of the resources are there. Like everything is within the resources table. We have all the calls, all of those pieces. So I would say just putting in the reps to vet those suppliers and getting your first kind of couple of ideas of products or distributors. And the best part is you can just post in like the Discord, like people will post to you guys or tag the coaches, and you're able to get the opinion of 3 coaches plus the whole group if you want, to see if a distributor is legit or a product, and then getting that first PO. Like it feels like a lot of money, even if it's like a couple of grand or you do a test order for $2,000. But putting that out there with kind of the thought that it might flop, but having that backing of looking through the distributor criteria, the brand criteria, having the coaches' feedback, I think that's huge. And that helps you get over kind of that like mindset, the hump in your mindset of getting over that and getting your PO placed and getting your first product going. And then from there, you can kind of learn and course correct as you go, but you've got to get that momentum going to get right into wholesale.
And that's such a good point too, because so much of wholesale, especially for guys that are new to wholesale, is just getting that first PO place, right? Like it's almost like you feel like you're climbing a huge mountain until you place that first PO. And once you place it, then you start going downhill and you have momentum and it gets way easier, right? So a lot of what we're doing, a lot of the coaching that we're doing is just getting people to that first PO. And then once they find that first PO, then it's like, all right, well, let's just replicate what got us here with this same supplier and apply that to new suppliers as well. So that's a lot of kind of what we're doing, is also just like vetting purchase orders and vetting suppliers. I get DMs every day from folks inside the network saying, hey, can you look at this supplier and give me your thoughts? Or can you look at this product and give me your thoughts? And for those listening, right, that is one of the things you're paying for, is access to us, direct access to answer those questions and help you either double down on winning decisions or help you avoid those mistakes, right? Simple as that. So, Kaj, I know you've got to run. Guys, this has been a really fun conversation. For the listeners, if you want to apply to join us inside the Wholesale Network, head over to wholesalenetwork.io. You can fill out the form on that website. When you fill out that form, it'll allow you to book a call. And then on that call, we'll see if you guys are either a fit for the coaching group, the mastermind group, or both, right? So with that, anything else you guys want to add before we jump?
No. Looking forward to AS.
Let's see. Yes. Looking forward to Vegas.
Yes.
Yeah, that'll be fun. We're recording this for the listeners. We're recording this, I guess, 4 days or maybe 5 days before we're heading to Vegas for ASD August of 2024. So if you're listening to this in the future, it was a fun event, I'm sure. So guys, thank you so much for your time, and we'll be back with another episode of the Amazon Wholesale Podcast next week. So thanks, guys.
All right, peace.
See you.